Hi everyone, we need to work on a second trick for solving quadratics or things that have that kind of quadratic structure. And this one is going to be using complete the square, which I know is tricky on expressions, so I'll start by going back through that. It's a similar trick, so if you're starting to get it with expressions, that'll give you a good leg up on getting this down. It's going to look a little bit different when we're doing it to an equation, but it's very similar steps, so just difference in the fact that we can use some properties of equality to help with what we're trying to do. So just to remind you, we should know how to complete the square on an expression. And I've written out our steps because those steps we will follow. It's the same steps. It just looks a little different when you have an equal sign to help you isolate things. So our first step is to isolate x squared and x, which really we kind of just do mentally. This very first step, we want to split those off and say, I'm just working on that, trying to make a square out of it. The second thing, and usually I do these two both at once when we're working on an expression, is to make sure that the leading coefficient is 1. The leading coefficient is the one hooked to the biggest power of your variable. So I need to do that in this case by factoring out a 3. Plus, there we go. Okay, and we're just ignoring that 5. That's the whole isolate x squared and x part. Now we finally get to complete the square. And remember, the trick for complete the square is you take that number in front of x, you cut it in half, and you square it. So we're going to take this number, and we're going to divide it by 2, and then square it, which is going to give us 2 squared. So the magic number in this case is 4. Whatever you do, because this is an expression, whatever you do, you have to undo, right? So we can multiply by 1 when we're working with an expression, or we can add 0, or we can just simplify pieces. So in this case, we want to add 0. We have to be very careful because we so far have added not just 4, but actually 12, 3 times 4. So to make it 0, we have to also subtract 12. And the last thing we want to do, so that was step 3, complete the square. We made it a perfect square. The last thing we want to do is factor the perfect square. So that factors into x plus 2 times x plus 2. And you should always see this b over 2 number showing up in that spot.